The Discovery of America by the Northmen, from the Carl Wine Hold Library. Presented to the University of California by John D. Spreckels, 1904. The following short sketch has been written at the request of several persons abroad. It may be of use for insertion in or in preparing articles for educational works, encyclopedias, the journals of historical societies, and other similar works, through which it may be wished to give still further publicity to historical facts so important. They have indeed already been referred to in some books of this kind, but often with considerable errors. The present paper is communicated by Charles C. Raffin, and is founded on his work, Antiquitates Americanae, sive scriptores septentrionales rerum anticolumbianarum in America, which is Latin for American Antiquities by the Northern writers of Anti-Columbian history, published by him in 1837 through the Royal Society of Northern Antiquaries of Copenhagen. The Dane Gardar of Swedish origin was the first Northman who discovered Iceland in 863. Only a few outplaces of this country had been visited previously, about 70 years before by Irish hermits. 11 years subsequently, or in 874, the Norwegian Ingolf began the colonization of the country, which was completed during a space of 60 years. The colonists, many of whom belonged to the most illustrious and most civilized families in the north, established in Iceland a nourishing republic. Here on this distant isle rock, the Old Danish or Old Northern language was preserved unchanged for centuries. And here in the Eddas were treasured those folk songs and folk myths, and in the sagas those historical tales and legends, which the first settlers had brought with them from their Scandinavian motherlands. Iceland was therefore the cradle of an historical literature of immense value. The situation of the island and the relationship of the colony to foreign countries in its earlier period compelled its inhabitants to exercise and develop their hereditary maritime skill and thirst for new discoveries across the great ocean. As early as the year 877, Gunnaborn saw for the first time the mountainous coast of Greenland. But this land was first visited by Eric the Red in 983, who 3 years afterwards, in 986, by means of Icelandic emigrants, established the first colony on its southwestern shore, where afterwards, in 1124, the Bishop's See of Gardar was founded, which subsisted for upwards of 300 years. The head firths or bays were named after the chiefs of the expedition. Eric the Red settled in Eric's Firth, Einar Raffin and Ketil in the firths called after them, and Heriulf on Heriulfsness. On a voyage from Iceland to Greenland this same year, 986, Bjarn, the son of the latter, was driven far out to sea towards the southwest, and for the first time beheld the coasts of the American lands, afterwards visited and named by his countrymen. In order to examine these countries more narrowly, Leif, the fortunate son of Eric the Red, undertook a voyage of discovery thither in the year 1000. He landed on the shores described by Bjarn, detailed the character of these lands more exactly, and gave them names according to their appearance. Helluland, which is Newfoundland, was so called from its flat stones. Markland, which is Nova Scotia from its woods, and Vineland, which is New England from its vines. Here he remained for some time, and constructed large houses, called after him Leifsbutter, which means leafs booths. A German named Turker, who accompanied Leif on this voyage, was the man who found the wild vines, which he recognized from having seen them in his own land. And Leif gave the country its name from this circumstance. 2 years afterwards, Leif's brother Thorwald repaired thither, and in 1003 caused an expedition to be undertaken to the south, along the shore. But he was killed in the summer of 1004 on a voyage northwards in a skirmish with the natives. The most distinguished, however, of all the first American discoverers is Thorfinn Karlsefne, an Icelander, whose genealogy is carried back in the old northern annals to Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, Scottish, and Irish ancestors, some of them of royal blood. In 1006, this chief on a merchant voyage visited Greenland, and there married Gudrid, the widow of Thorstein's son of Eric the Red, who had died the year before in an unsuccessful expedition to Vinland. Accompanied by his wife, who encouraged him to this voyage, and by a crew of 160 men on board 3 vessels, he repaired in the spring of 1007 to Vinland, where he remained for 3 years, and had many communications with the aborigines. Here his wife Gudrid bore him a son, Snorre, who became the founder of an illustrious family in Iceland, which gave that island several of its first bishops. His daughter's son was the celebrated Bishop Thorlak Runolfsson, who published the first Christian code of Iceland. In 1121, Bishop Eric sailed to Vinland from Greenland, doubtless for the purpose of strengthening his countrymen in their Christian faith. The notices given by the old Icelandic voyage chroniclers respecting the climate, the soil, and the productions of this new country are very characteristic. Nay, we have even a statement of this kind as old as the 11th century, from a writer not a Northman, Adam of Bremen. He states on the authority of Sven Estridsson, the king of Denmark, a nephew of Canute the Great, that the country got its name from the vine growing wild there. It is a remarkable coincidence, in this respect, that its English rediscoverers, for the same reason, named the large island which is close off the coast, Martha's Vineyard. Spontaneously growing wheat, also called maize, or Indian corn, was also found in this country. In the meantime, it is the total result of the nautical, geographical, and astronomical evidences in the original documents which places the situation of the countries discovered beyond all doubt. The number of days' sail between the several newly found lands, the striking description of the coasts, especially the white sandbanks of Nova Scotia, and the long beaches and downs of a peculiar appearance on Cape Cod. The Kialarnes and Furdistrandir of the Northmen are not to be mistaken. In addition, here too we have the astronomical remark that the shortest day in Vinland was 9 hours long, which fixes the latitude of 41 degrees 24 minutes 10 seconds, or just that of the promontories which limit the entrances to Mount Hope Bay, where Leif's booths were built, and in the district around which the old Northmen had their head establishment, which was named by them Hope. The Northmen were also acquainted with American land still farther to the south, called by them Vitramanaland, which means land of the white men, or Ireland it Mikla, which means Great Ireland. The exact situation of this country is not stated. It was probably North and South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida. In 1266, some priests at Gardar in Greenland set on foot a voyage of discovery to the Arctic regions of America. An astronomical observation proves that this took place through Lancaster Sound and Barrows Strait to the latitude of Wellington's Channel. The last memorandum supplied by the old Icelandic records is a voyage from Greenland to Markland in 1347. This concludes The Discovery of America by the Northmen by Carl Weinhold. Read by 31 Pearls. Thank you for listening.